Live on Sky News Australia. The Rita Panahi Show.
Hello, welcome and Merry Christmas. I'm Gemma Tognini, moonlighting once again from my day job, filling in tonight for Rita Panahi. We've got a lot packed into the next hour, so relax, settle in and get ready, because coming up shortly, reports out of the Middle East suggest leadership of the terrorist group Hamas is beginning to fracture, with growing calls for an end to the war in Gaza from within the organisation itself. 1 in 10 Aussies will be relying on charities to make it by this Christmas, with half of those in need reaching out for the first time this year. We'll talk to two of the wonderful organisations meeting needs this Christmas about what help is available and how there's still time for us to pitch in and make a difference. And British showbiz presenter Sarah Robertson recaps the year in entertainment, from Prince Harry's frostbitten old fella to Barry Humphries' touching send-off at the Sydney Opera House. Plus, what to look for in 2024. But first, this past week, a coalition of democratic nations formed to protect ships using the Red Sea and Suez Canals, one of the world's most important maritime zones, from yet another threat from terrorist Islamic extremists. For context, about 12% of the world's maritime trade uses this route. Operation Prosperity Guardian has a mandate to protect vessels from Houthi rebels. For context, in 2014, Houthi Shiite Muslims instigated a bloody civil war in Yemen, leading to a devastating humanitarian crisis, and the conflict between Houthis and the ruling Sunni Muslims continues. The Houthis say they won't stop attacking ships in the Red Sea until Israel ends the war on Hamas. The UK, Canada, France, Spain, Italy and the Netherlands have all committed ships to the area. Australia? Fear not, people, we signed a letter. That's right. Prime Minister Albanese and Defence Minister Richard Marles signed a letter. They issued a stern diplomatic scolding of sorts and told the Houthi they're very bad and need to cut it all out. They also committed to send 6 ADF personnel to Bahrain in the new year to help out a little bit. In my view, Australia is showing its weakness here. First, it demands a ceasefire in Gaza without concurrently demanding a surrender of Hamas's war criminals and an immediate return of the remaining hostages. Now it says to our allies, you lot can do the heavy lifting, we'll just sit over here and have a cuppa. As the Australian's Greg Sheridan wrote today, the government is saying to our AUKUS partners, we expect you to send in your muscle to keep us safe. But we're a little bit undercooked right now and a bit spooked too, so we'll just sit here, sit tight until the work's done. Sheridan summed it up to perfection, saying Australia has chosen the bludgers option. You provide our security, we do nothing in return. I'd like to change pace a little bit here, if you'll indulge me, as we head into this Christmas weekend. My late dad died early on a Saturday morning in the middle of June 2019. I remember getting home from the hospital and thinking, I need loo paper and I need dog food. Such are the realities of life that show no mercy and no respect for moments, for seasons, indeed, of pain, loss and trauma. I remember walking around the shops that morning sort of in a daze and thinking nobody knows, nobody would have a clue that 5 short hours ago my dad passed away. What's that got to do with anything? I can hear you asking. Well, a lot actually this weekend. This past week, as I've watched festive stress manifest on the roads, in the shops and pretty much everywhere in between, I've thought a lot about that morning. How many people we'll meet this weekend will secretly be in a place of pain, loss and, yes, trauma. Christmas itself can do that for a variety of reasons, and with the cost of living crisis alone, many families will indeed be doing it tough. And that's before you factor in the other life events that can make this time of year anything but merry or bright. So before you and I react to whatever that circumstance or that person is doing, let's try to take a breath, take a moment, because that person who we might be tempted to unleash on, you just never know what they might be going through. This Christmas, let's find grace and let's give it abundantly. In the past few weeks, fractures have started to show in the leadership of the terror organisation Hamas. Just a few days ago, the Wall Street Journal reported that the terror group's political leaders have been in talks about ending the conflict, sparking a sharp response from the military wing. On paper, at least, Hamas's Qatar-based political leadership is in charge, but the conflict between the suits living the life of luxury in Doha and the muscle and the boots on the ground in Gaza continues to sharpen. Adding to that, more evidence that everyday Gazans are becoming more vocal and, by extension, more courageous in their criticism of the terrorists who rule their lives. During a November 5 live broadcast from the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital in Gaza, which aired on Al Jazeera, an elderly wounded man criticised Hamas for hiding amongst the civilian population and told them to go to hell and hide there. Take a listen.
بعدين بالنسبه للمقاومه اللي بتيجي بتخبى بين الناس، ليش تخبى بين الناس؟ يروح في جهنم يتخبى.
يعني هذه شهادات من المواطنين.
Joining me now from Jerusalem to unpack this further is Yigal Karman, President and founder of the Middle East Media Research Institute. Yigal, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Yigal,
and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy New Year.
And very Merry Christmas to you too. For our viewers who may not be familiar with the organisation, can you give us a brief overview of who you are and what it does?
The Middle East Media Research Institute is 25 years old. The goal is to bridge the language gap between the Arab and Muslim world and the West. We monitor the Arab media and the Muslim media in Arabic, in Farsi, in Turkish, in Urdu, and the school books, which are most important, and the religious edicts or sermons for wherever the religion plays a role in the life of the individual and the society. And we publish it to make people aware of what they don't know because it's in other languages. In recent years, 10 years ago, we began also publishing and monitoring the Russian media, and 5 years ago, the Chinese media. And it's quite important for you guys to read what they say in Chinese, in translation, into English.
Absolutely. If I can start, Yigal, by asking you, these growing reports of conflict among Hamas, its leadership, and whispers of them wanting to negotiate and out of this situation, what credibility do you give to them, and are they reflecting the sentiment of the media that you're monitoring?
Well, for sure it reflects something in the sense that Hamas caused this war and they are hiding among the population, and Israel, unfortunately, tragically, has no other choice but to hit also the people that are around the targets because they are hiding there. However, I wouldn't make much of these fractures. And why, Gemma? Because we're talking about a mafia and a religious mafia. In the mafia, there are no fractures. There is a bullet in the head. And so is it in extremist Islamist organizations, terrorist organizations. There are no real fractures. There are cases where some express some unhappiness with another, and they get their punishment right away. This is why, and in this case, I would say there is even more of a no chance for real fractures because the leadership in Doha holds the money, holds the hope, holds the hope to renovate everything, to continue the battle. So the people that talk like that, they don't even give their names. They are too afraid. They will be punished with a bullet in their head. This is not something to build on.
If I can just ask you, Yigal Karman, the clip that we just saw from Al Jazeera, the elderly man wounded in hospital and really letting fly on Hamas and what they're doing to the people in Gaza, how much courage, I guess, does that take, first of all? And is that sentiment something that you are seeing growing in the media that you're monitoring out of that area?
Yes, definitely. And we published a series, as you saw, this very video is from our institute.
That's right.
And we published several such things. But they are all with no names. People are talking from their heart. They are so desperate. But it doesn't come to anything. The ones that hold the weapons are the ones that decide, no matter how much the population is suffering. It went so far that one of the leaders said, the tunnels are for us, the fighters. The rest of the population, they are the responsibility of the UN. Imagine an organization that pretends to be fighting for the nation, for the people, and saying, well, the people are the UN responsibility, not ours. We have the tunnels for us. You're talking here about a religious mafia, a deadly combination.
Yigal Kaman, I could speak to you about this all evening. Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise tonight.
Thank you.
Today, the lawyer for Bruce Lehrmann delivered what's been described as a blistering closing address before Justice Lee in the federal court defamation trial against Network 10 and former co-host of the project, Lisa Wilkinson. Caroline Marcus has the latest from outside court.
Well, Gemma, this has been a marathon, almost 5-week trial. And after hearing from dozens and dozens of witnesses and pages of documents being tendered, the judge wrapped up this case by saying that he found elements of Bruce Lehrmann's version of what happened on the night in question a bit odd. Now, he did say that it wasn't in particular the fact that Mr. Lehrmann left Parliament House without apparently checking on Brittany Higgins, who he'd entered with after a night of drinking, that was so strange. Justice Michael Lee said it's a strange sort of thing to leave her on her Pat Malone and not worry about how she got home. At the very least, it's a bit caddish. Now, Mr. Lehrmann is suing both 10 and Lisa Wilkinson over a 2021 interview on the project in which Ms. Higgins claimed that she'd been raped in a ministerial suite 2 years before. Mr. Lehrmann's lawyer argued that the journalists did not act reasonably in producing their story, and that is a criteria for proving a qualified privilege defence or public interest defence, which they are running alongside a truth defence. And Mr. Lehrmann's lawyer argued that Ms. Wilkinson and her colleagues were so captured by Ms. Higgins that they didn't challenge her claims. He said despite Ms. Wilkinson raising privately her doubts over a photograph of a bruise that Ms. Higgins claimed was sustained during the alleged assault, that never went to air in the end, even though there were questions she had over how that survived despite other data being lost in the, quote, death of her phone. Instead, Matthew Richardson, SC, said Ms. Wilkinson was gleefully anticipating her hit on Linda Reynolds and the then coalition government. He also suggested a submission by Ms. Wilkinson's lawyer that she had a lesser responsibility than her colleagues was unreasonable. Instead, he said that she was casting her producer Angus Llewellyn adrift. She stood on a stage and accepted a Logie Award for the program, and then we hear her instructing her counsel, telling them, well, I didn't really have anything to do with the program in the end. If you're honest, squints into the horizon, you will see Mr. Llewellyn on a barge, fate unknown. Ms. Wilkinson's barrister rejected those claims that her client acted unreasonably. She said that Ms. Wilkinson was not, in fact, copied in on the majority of the emails that her colleagues sent in the lead up to this program going to air. The judge observed that there was the possibility that he could make a finding against 10 and not Lisa Wilkinson. He said there's a universe where you could succeed on the qualified privilege defence and Channel 10 could fail. That's a conceivable outcome. Now, Mr. Lehrmann has always denied any wrongdoing or having any sexual contact with Ms. Higgins. The judge has now reserved his decision in this matter, with a decision on this huge case due in the new year.
Caroline Marcus there with the latest. Still to come, Gillian Fennell, Australia's favourite station mum, joins me from the outback of South Australia as rural families call for more support from the government to send their kids to school. Plus, how you can help make Christmas a little brighter for those doing it tough this year. Welcome back, I'm Gemma Tognini, filling in tonight for Rita Panahi. Well, most of us who live in or near a city, even a decent regional country town, can take a lot for granted, like having things close by, shops, doctors and schools, for example. But what about the Australian families who live in really remote areas, the outback that makes this country famous? Families in the bush are calling on the government to increase funding to help cover the cost of education for kids living in extremely remote areas. Recent data shows that the majority of parents are out of pocket more than $20,000 each per child as the gap between funding and the cost continues to widen. Joining me now from her station out the back of South Australia is Gillian Fennell. Gillian, welcome and Merry Christmas. How are you going?
I'm good, thanks, Gemma. How are you? And Merry Christmas to you and all your viewers who might be watching this.
I'm very well. I'm dealing with the vagaries of Sydney weather this week, but I noticed that you're coming to me from the schoolroom at your station, which is pretty apt given the topic of our conversation. Most of us would have at least a little bit of idea about remote schooling, but can you give us a little bit of a reality check about what that actually looks like for you and just remind our viewers who may not have been with us last week how far you are from the nearest town and how big your property is?
So we've got a property that's about 1 million acres and our closest town of any size is Alice Springs, which is a 5-hour drive away. Our nearest capital city is 1,100 kilometres away, which is a massive drive. And, we're pretty isolated, pretty remote. But now I've got access to high-speed internet. I can speak to everyone across Australia right now.
So you're homeschooling, obviously. That looks like a pretty sophisticated schoolroom, by the way. I know last week we laughed about having to tidy it up a bit, but you're running 1 million acres. Your people like you and families like you are feeding people like me. I always like to say, if you're going to criticise a farmer, don't do it with food in your mouth, that's for sure. So you're running a farm like that, or not even a farm, but a property like that, but you're also having to school your kids. I mean, how important is this allowance for families like yours?
It's incredibly important, and I really would like to highlight the fact as well as it's not just farming families who need this support, but if you want to come and visit the outback and you want someone in a shop to serve you, or if you want to have access to a medical clinic, or if you want to have any services at all in the outback where you love to visit, and we love to welcome you here because we love to share our remoteness and our special country with you. You know, we need people to come and live and work in these areas, and they have families and they need support to have a proper education. And it's a mandated education. Kids have to be at school these days for a certain length of time. It's compulsory. We can't just pull our kids out and send them to work on the farm like we used to in the old days. It's disappointingly for a lot of people because our kids are really capable and skilled, but we need this support. And it's for everyone who lives in a remote area and doesn't have access to secondary education. And
that's such a good point. It's not just the people on the land, it's the people who might have the nearest truck stop, for example, the nearest, the doctor who's at the nearest medical centre because it might not be a hospital. I mean, just for a point of reference, how close is the nearest high school to you guys?
So there is a high school at Cooper PD, which is about 3 hours away. Which is definitely too far to commute back and forth every day. And as far as I'm aware, that high school only goes to grade 10 anyway. Right. So if you want to complete 11 and 12, you still need to go either to a major regional centre or further on to Adelaide to a high school there.
Well, let's hope the new year brings some welcome news in that regard. Before I let you go, though, Gillian Fennell, what is a bush Christmas like for you guys out the back of South Australia on 1 million acres?
A bush Christmas is going to be a lot of relaxing. It's going to be a lot of staying cool, although we have been blessed with some magnificent weather just recently.
Okay.
And we might take a cheeky swim in the dam, which is full from the recent rain. And basically just eating a lot of Australian ham and seafood and a lot of great food that's been produced by a lot of great farmers across Australia.
Well, wishing you and yours a wonderful and safe Christmas. Thanks for making time to chat to us tonight, Gillian Fennell. Thank you so much.
Any time for you, Gemma. Thank you very much.
That's Gillian Fennell, Australia's favourite station mum. And if you're like me and a little bit bonkers enough to be on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, you should follow Gillian Fennell for an utterly captivating and wholesome and unfiltered view of Australian station life. Well, Christmas is often referred to as the most wonderful time of the year, but for millions of Australians, it's just so tough. There's no two ways about it. As the cost of living crisis continues to hurt families, new research has found that nearly 1 in 10 Australians will rely on charity to get by this Christmas, and nearly half of those people are asking for help for the first time. They're your friends and neighbours, mine too, and they're living amongst us suffering quietly. Joining me now to talk about this a little bit more are Wayside Chapel CEO, the Reverend Jon Owen, and Vinnie's Regional Director, Claire Van Doom. Thank you both for joining me tonight. I appreciate your time. It's a very, very busy time of the year for you both. Claire, I'll start with you if I might. Are those statistics a fair reflection of what you and your teams are noticing on the ground right now?
Hi, Gemma. Yes, certainly. We have had a very different year in 2023, but at this time we're finding that the people that are coming to us, they're people we've never seen before, and it is an incredible increase, 18% of the people that are coming in, and 63% of the increase of supports that we've provided in 2023, $13.7 million. By people that have, they never thought they'd be in this situation before. So it's a really difficult time for lots of people. And as you rightly said, just your next door neighbour, your friends, your family, everyone facing the same thing.
Yeah. Jon, the number of people needing help is growing. That's no secret. Is the cost of living crisis also impacting the number of people who have the money to help and to contribute?
Yeah, absolutely, Gemma. As Claire also stated, we're seeing a significant increase in the number of Aussies who are coming to us, seeking us out for love, but also for care and support. We calculated by August this year we'd seen as many people as we had for the entire of 2022. So we're seeing a significant increase in people coming to us. We're seeing a significant increase in some of the complexities of the things and challenges that they're facing. So at the same time as we're seeing many families having to commit to more work, so we've seen a drop in volunteering, and we're so grateful for everyone who volunteers and also donates to us, but there is a reduced capacity for people to donate. So we're seeing there's a kind of a double kind of whammy going on right now across the country.
Can I just get you to unpack that a little bit, if I might, just in terms of the complexities that families are facing? I know, just let's be all honest with one another and speaking transparently. I got a budget, I live on a budget, I stick to a budget, and that looks different for everyone. I don't have children, I have other complexities, but what kind of things are people saying to you and to your teams, Jon?
Yeah. Well, I think all of us who live on budgets, there's no fat left in the budget. And I think it's important to look beyond just this year. Look at the last 3 years, the roller coaster of opening, closing, losing businesses. Many people have struggled to hold it together for their families, and two parents in the workforce while balancing childcare and education, working as hard as they can, often doing it without having time to catch up with friends, and they're seeing this increasing pressure. And all at the moment, our kids, while we've been busy trying to hold it together, have often been stuck on social media. So we're seeing this rise in anxiety. I'm not painting a very nice picture, though, am I? It's the reality of what we're all facing right now.
Totally. And I think it's really validating to have these conversations. And Claire, same question to you. It's the practical help, obviously, the things that people need, food and necessities. But in terms of the intangible support, the person that someone can come and talk to without being judged, just the feeling of being heard and being validated in a difficult time, is that something that you're seeing anecdotally more than you might have this time last year?
Yeah, certainly, Gemma. I think it's that connection, and even in, as Jon was saying, that COVID time or whatever else, we've sort of, got back to say, well, hey, what are the real things that we need to survive our world, and just that connection that we have, and people who just taking time to be non-judgmental and just respect that someone, it could be a neighbour, it could be a sister, may not be doing as well as what you are. So I think it's really important and be open about it. Even just saying how are you? It makes a big difference because there is a huge expectation on all of us to, get in, perform, do all these things. And
so true.
We just can't do it all the time, can we?
Yeah, spot on.
I mean, Jon, one of the things Claire just said made me think automatically that it's a great deal of, shame. We don't like to talk about these things. These are big words and big emotions, and we would typically talk about a Christmas appeal with, hey, donate some food and donate your time, and that's all valid and all needed. But I think the underlying tension here is how a person views themselves. If they can provide for their children not feeling guilty for wanting presents from mum and dad, all that kind of stuff. How are your teams, Jon, dealing with that on a day-to-day basis?
Well, we very much like Claire said, everyone who comes through our doors, it's often on the worst day of their life, and they're never met with a spirit of judgment. Our mission is about creating community with no us and them, and everyone who walks through our doors, from our volunteers through to our staff, through to our community, is, we are always encouraging them to, there's no value in stoicism at this time of year.
So true.
Ask, reach out. We're here to help. We can't, we've all failed the mind reading test. So, but if we're there if people can realise that they're in that place where they're loved and not judged, we can begin to hear the cries that are on their hearts. And, so often at this time of year, we should on ourselves. I should have the perfect family. I should have all the presents under the trees. Don't should on yourself. Just
see what you did there. Claire, just quickly, how much is Vinnie's hoping to raise this year? What will the money be used for, and how can people still help? Jon, I'll ask you in a second, but in the couple of minutes we've got left, how can people still help between now and over the weekend, and of course looking into the new year?
Gemma, we're looking at, 1.8 mil. It'll make a big difference to the people we support all day, every day. Vinnies.org.au, or the, Vinnie's shops, go in. That's what you can do for us. And it certainly will. And it doesn't take much, because if you think $52 can help a person with everyday essentials, just to get some stuff happening, or, an emergency food hamper, that will make a big difference to someone who's counting the cost of going, I've got 2 days left in my bank account with $3 there. What am I going to do?
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Just, if you can, if not, donate. Quality goods to us, great. We can get it out there and recycle and do all the things that we do, because Vinnie's there to support. That's what we do all day, every day. And as Jon said, just reach out. We're here to support you.
Jon, I've got about 30 seconds. How can people help?
Look, we're having our big street Christmas Day party while other charities are taking a well-earned break and winding down. We're firing up. So we're going to be donating. We're going to be putting on our famous street Christmas party. We're catering for over 800 people. Amazing. We don't close any day during the year too. So if you hop on and donate a plate, so go to that website, waysidechapel.org.au, and donate a plate, $27. Not only will provide a Christmas dinner with all the trimmings and the raucous street party, it'll go to supporting women, children and families throughout the month of the end of the year and through January. I feel bad asking people who are already doing it tough, but thank you to everyone who can consider making a gift.
You know what? It's in giving that we receive. Thank you so much, Reverend Jon Owen.
Well, it sounds like Reverend Gemma there.
Oh, listen, I'm just letting it out there. It's a Friday night before Christmas. Thank you so much, Reverend Jon Owen and Claire Van Doom, to you and your teams and everything they do. And don't forget to help if you can. Next on Sky, we're getting festive with Joe Hildebrand and Michelle Stevenson. I'm going to ask them for their big predictions for 2024, plus their most ridiculous Christmas memories. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back. The Albanese government is being criticised for its decision to join calls for a ceasefire in the Israel-Gaza war, following the release of a video claiming to show a Hamas leader praising Australia's policy shift, which has been described as disturbing and embarrassing by the opposition. Here was the Prime Minister reacting to that this morning.
I have contempt for Hamas, and I won't be giving them any publicity, which is what they're after. I won't lend anything positive to say about Hamas, and nor should anyone in the Australian media.
Well, joining me now to get festive in a minute, I promise, is Sky News contributor Joe Hildebrand and Nova's Michelle Stevenson. Welcome, guys, and Merry Festivus.
Happy Christmas. We have to, us Irish Catholics have to say Happy Christmas.
Why
because
not?
Merry involves, Dad not coming home from the pub. For 6 days
I didn't know
straight.
that.
Yeah. We always say Happy Christmas.
Not Merry.
Did you know that?
No, I did not. But I want to be Merry. I don't want to come home
if you
from
go
the
to
pub
Mass,
for
they'll
6
always
days
say Happy
straight.
Christmas. They won't say...
I feel like I'm getting an education.
Merry is what you get at Christmas. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
you get Mary, but...
Mary or
we
Mary?
get Mary and
Do you get Mary
Joseph
as well?
and Jesus, the whole thing. But,
now we know how Mary got pregnant.
Well, allegedly.
my God.
I'm gonna just
honestly,
put up a red
you
flag.
bodies are all the same. Haven't you read it? It's all there in Luke. Come on.
Oh, my Lord, have mercy. I'm going to start preaching.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with you. We're going to talk about a serious story for a second before I shock you with my best Christmas movie of all time. This Hamas video is yet to be claimed as legitimate by anyone. It's still having its authenticity tested.
Yeah.
Even
Is that
though,
after they've tested the authenticity of the Gas the Jews video? New South Wales Police
I'm just moving backwards out of that one. But even though the source that published it is legitimate, the government, does the government not have anyone to blame but itself for the mixed messaging it's been sending on this issue broadly?
I think, the government... I suppose the left is always very fond of saying it's the company you keep. And if the company you keep is suddenly Hamas, then you're in all sorts. But to Anthony Albanese's credit, he's been strong on this. He's been unequivocal in condemning Hamas as a terrorist organisation. He's been attacked from the other side for not being tough enough on Israel. And indeed, when he was challenged on this in his recent trip to the US, and when he was talking very tough against Hamas, and people were trying to paint him as this sort of pro-Israel kind of stooge or whatever, which I know a lot of people on the right would raise their eyebrows at.
Yeah.
But he was saying, doesn't that look like you're taking sides? And he said, yeah, damn straight I'm taking sides. I'm on the side against Hamas.
And that's all taken, and I accept that. But what does it say, Michelle, then, when he's part of this, cohort of the human rights luminaries like Afghanistan, Iran, and et cetera, in voting for this ceasefire without concurrently saying any ceasefire must necessitate the release of the hostages, 138 of them still, and surrendering these war criminals and trying them in The Hague.
Yeah, and I think what we've done is we've lost the whole realisation that there are still hostages here.
That's it.
That Israel is just saying, and quite rightly, that we will stop bombing you if you give us back our hostages.
Yeah.
And they're not doing that. So we've got to ask ourselves why. And we can't support any kind of terrorist organisation that is going to flat out just say, we will not stop until every Jew is dead.
And might I also say they kindly, by extension, also said, and then the Christians after we're done with the Jews.
Oh, 100%. And they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. They're not going to
First
stop.
they came for the Jews and I said nothing, as the old saying goes.
Yeah.
I think, to be fair, and I'm happy to be corrected on this, but I think this second resolution that the UN, that Australia and Canada and New Zealand did vote for, the difference between that and the previous one we didn't, was that it included a demand for the release of the hostages. So that was, whether you call that sort of political cover or whatever.
Yeah.
But it did actually do that. But again, I think the problem, and again, this is the difficulty where people just say, well, of course you'd want a ceasefire. Why wouldn't you want a ceasefire?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want
that's
an
a
identity
great
life?
question.
The problem is that when you do that, you're actually playing Hamas's game and you're playing into their hands because it makes it look like that. And that's not true. They're liars. They're terrorists.
They
they're
broke
barbarians.
the first ceasefire within a week.
But of course, they then come back in and say, see, we're on the side of the moral righteousness.
I'm gonna put something to you both. I'm gonna tease my weekend column, actually, because I can.
That's what Sky News is for.
That's what we're here.
So I would put it to you guys to start with, and the greater population, that Israel is doing the world's dirty work and heavy lifting for it. Israel is committed to getting rid of Hamas.
Yes.
Because you cannot have a free Palestine with Hamas. They have not had an election since 2006. Yep. They commandeer all of the UN money. We all know what's going on here. Everyone else is going, that's very naughty.
And then you've got the leaders of Hamas not even in Palestine.
That's right.
They're like living it up large. They're living large and they're taking the money. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a terrorist organisation which is pretty much taking everything from the people. They don't care that the people are getting bombed. They don't care that, they're using human shields. They created this whole narrative.
And to your... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, the problem is, and the question is, how much are the Palestinian people aware of this? Because this is a people who have
I think they're starting to switch.
I think they are starting to,
Yes.
and I think sooner or later it will, certainly as more and more Western media gets in there, and hopefully less biased Western media gets in there. But again, these are people who have been completely conditioned for years and years and years, if not decades.
Yes.
And you talk about Hamas not holding elections.
Yeah.
In many ways, we should be grateful for that, because there are fears that if on the West Bank they held elections, Hamas would actually win.
That's
of course, that was
true.
stuff that was conducted behind them. But there's figures that show in the initial aftermath of October the 7th, these had huge amounts of popular support. Now, whether the people supporting these attacks believe the atrocities that were committed or not.
But they saw people paraded through the streets.
That's right.
And they celebrated that.
So this idea that
they had their iPhones out and then they were hitting them and they were celebrating them. And I think we have to remember that a lot of these people are conditioned to believe that what Hamas are doing, they are righteous and they are the ones that are going to free them. But at the end of the day, when before Hamas took over, Gaza was like a beautiful place. They had resorts, they had all kinds of freedoms. And inch by inch, Hamas started taking those freedoms back. And then I think the people are now starting to see that they cannot survive with Hamas in power.
To your point earlier about, there's still 138 hostages in the bowels of God knows where. One of them is a little baby who's about to turn 1. You're a mum. Having your child's first birthday,
I can't even talk about it.
I think that is something that is really important to continue to.
But I also don't think that the Palestinian people can survive much more of the bombings either. I think
there is no
win.
Absolutely not. Go on.
I was going to say, you also have to raise the questions of how many hostages are still alive.
Yes,
to give back. Because the problem is that when you pull the rug back, they're going to find out. Obviously, a lot of them will have been terribly injured. A lot of them will be dead. And so Hamas has to sort of pretend it's got this invisible bargaining.
Well, this is where we'll leave it, I think, because it's time to be festive. I don't know. How do you segue out of something so serious, really? Just smoothly, like I just did?
Speaking of the Holy Land.
Do you know
but it's true. I was there last year. I went to Jerusalem. I went to Bethlehem.
You and I were both
amazingly, profoundly moving
and
thing.
And we're both corrupted as a result, apparently.
Well, very highly corrupted as a result. I always declare it. But
same with me.
But again, the idea that this place, which at that time actually seemed quite hopeful, and there seemed that progress was being made after the Abraham Accords, better cooperation with Arab countries. And Hamas was actually tolerated, because this is why there was so much complacency and why I think the attack was able to happen, because the Israelis thought, well, Gaza's actually a bit of a hot potato for us. It's too dangerous for us to be providing security. So if Hamas just does it and all they do is fire a few rockets that don't really hurt anyone or kill anyone, and we can retaliate.
Well, and the Israeli government was busy self-immolating. Anyway,
speaking of Christmas,
speaking of the Holy Land,
speaking of what, ho ho ho. Okay, so Christmas movies. Hotly contested topic.
Oh,
we've engaged on this already.
I know. So every Christmas Eve, my family and I get together, and it's become a tradition. We watch the penultimate Christmas movie, Die Hard.
I'm okay with that. I'll give that a pass.
I don't think it's even controversial. I think obviously Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
Well, it's not Christmas
What I do have a problem with is Love Actually. It's not even about Christmas. It's not even about love.
And it's sexist.
They're all terrible people.
They're all terrible people.
I didn't mind, I feel like I'm a little bit of an
hot chick from EastEnders is good, though.
Which one's that one? Oh, my team,
the secretary.
Yeah, but now the PM's just swooped in, made off with the help. What chance did the rest of us have?
They're all making off with the help.
His driver was probably in love with her too, but he can't compete with 10 Downing Street, can he?
I haven't forgiven Alan Rickman.
No one
for breaking
awful,
Emma
terrible.
Thomas.
That's right.
No one's forgiven Alan Rickman.
It's been 20 years. 19 years.
No.
Yeah. And that's the last thing people remember.
Absolutely.
So Alan Rickman, he's a terrorist in one Christmas movie. He breaks his wife's heart in another Christmas movie.
He's the perfect bad guy.
And then he's Professor Snape in Harry Potter.
It's not actually Christmas until Hans Gruber falls off Nakatomi Plaza.
That's a moment. But I have a somewhat controversial view.
Okay.
That any movie that you watch at Christmas is by definition a Christmas movie. Therefore,
what's yours?
The Big Lebowski.
Oh, I like that.
It took me years to understand it. I'm still not quite there.
Is there Christmas? I've watched The Big Lebowski.
There's no Christmas in it. It's just if you watch it at Christmas, it's a Christmas movie.
Are you sure it was really Christmas and you weren't just
No, 100%. Don't they drink White Russians? Aren't they famous in the Big Lebowski for White Russians?
Right, that'll do. We'll keep that one.
I know there's a lot of green in the Big Lebowski. I'm not quite sure about the red.
It took me a really long time to understand that film. Like,
there's nothing to understand.
There's nothing to understand. It's just a film.
It just happens. Dude. It's just a guy who's just trying to get his life together and fail.
It's like Seinfeld.
I really relate.
It's just life.
Festivus for the rest of us. Okay, highs and lows of the year, my friends. Joe.
Look, I was asked this a week ago, and I actually couldn't think of any.
No, I had to sit there and
I ended up going for Cheng Li, but being released, which was a fantastic one. But then I remembered I was talking to a friend of mine, the Labor Party, and I said, "Oh, hang on, Chris Minns won this year."
Well, that's not a bad high for you guys.
That's a great high. And from the right side of the Labor Party, both right, smaller and bigger. That's right. Well, so we see us, I'm an impartial journalist. But people on the right
There's a lot of we going on here. A lot of we going on.
See themselves as the right and the sensible right, and I'm not sure what they think everyone else is. But there he is. There's Chris Minns. Who
I don't mind him.
He's fantastic.
I don't mind him.
You know, the fact that him and Dom Perrottet are really
He's giving off DILF vibes.
Oh, yeah.
DILF. He's total DILF vibes.
Oh, I'd DILF him.
And this is where Gemma loses control of the conversation.
My highs?
Obviously, Chris Minns winning.
No. It was the Matildas. How could you go past the Matildas?
Yeah.
What getting the nation together in such a way and cheering them on. I have never felt more proud to be an Australian.
Really? That's a big call.
No, it was amazing. And like when you were watching them, like in the quarterfinals, I went to that game. Like it was just
What about
incredible.
our Kathy Freeman winning gold? Andrew Hoy and his 8 goals.
Yes, but like since then, when was the last time bringing Australia together?
So what you're saying is the Matildas are losers.
Comparatively,
but bringing Australia together and under the women's sport, for women to be at the front echelon of that.
Do you know what? It's funny you should say that because my niece is 19 and I had no idea. She is the full book on the Matildas. Loved it. Went to all the games. Wanted to watch. She was with me in Sydney.
And it was such joy.
I didn't know, but she's like, I love them. I know Mary Fowler, and she knew all their stats and who they play for. I just think it's wonderful for that generation of girls.
And it's also, but not just girls. Like I think the nice thing is he says as he talks over the 2 other women in the panel. But
please mansplain it to me.
But like my boy is the age where him and all his friends are just soccer obsessed. He plays soccer every weekend, blah blah blah, and they were all completely. So it wasn't like a big thing.
No, it wasn't. But everyone got behind it. And I think the world was surprised at how popular female soccer was in Australia.
As long as they win.
I mean, even when they didn't.
That's the Australian rule for all sport. It's like if you win, we love you. It doesn't matter if you're David Warner. Do whatever you want with the cricket ball.
I'm going to round this off by sharing with everyone. I once played Division 13E basketball. It was not good, and I grew up thinking that 4th was a place.
You don't strike me
not really very sporty, and that's where I'm going to leave
I'm a sporty person.
My festive friends.
4th is a place.
4th is not a place. I found out. It's really
4th isn't a place.
Really?
4th is a sad space to be.
My parents always used to tell me to come 4th, and I.
4th is a sad place. Merry Christmas, Joe Hildebrand.
Happy Christmas, Jen.
Happy Christmas.
Happy and
happy holidays, because we can't say Christmas anymore, aren't we banned?
Holidays is a holy day.
I'm saying Christmas.
That's where the word comes from.
Oh no, I can't.
So if you'd have to say, you'd have to say happy secular days.
Okay, enjoy your break.
Merry Christmas to Joe and to Michelle.
Happy Christmas to the one true Holy Roman Apostolic Church.
After the break,
all
from
you
Barbie
Protestants, you don't get in either.
To the King's coronation and Harry's frozen old fella. It's been a big year. We'll have a look back on the biggest moments in entertainment. That's after the break. Welcome back. It's been a big year for showbiz and royal news. Who better to recap the best and worst moments of 2023 than the Queen of the UK entertainment reporting industry, Sarah Robertson. Sarah, Merry Christmas and welcome.
Merry Christmas to you. Thank you for having me on the show. I love that introduction. I'll take it. I'll take all the compliments.
I'll keep them flowing freely like eggnog. Would be indecent to start anywhere other than with the royal family and royal news tonight, and casting our minds all the way back to January. Prince Harry gifted us with the literary genius of Spare. All the tales of him punching on with his brother Prince William, thoughts about his evil stepmother Queen Camilla, and of course something about a frostbitten old fella. I mean, what's not to love? Did you read the book?
Yes, I didn't just read it. I had to fly to Spain at the time to report on it back in January. I mean, I can't believe that was nearly a year ago, but what a way to kick off 2023. Yeah. Prince Harry delivered, did he not? He sold 3.2 million copies of his book worldwide just in the first week alone. All of us were so eager to hear his take on life in the royal family, and wasn't it just explosive? As you've touched on, who can forget that part where he talked about having frostbite on his Todger and having to use, I think it was Elizabeth Arden 8-hour cream, which was something his mother, the late Princess of Wales, Diana, had used as a moisturiser. And Harry had remembered this and said, oh, I thought I'd put some on my, royal jewels down below. So there was things like that. But then obviously we got into the deeper stuff, how he felt about his father, his position in the royal family, and that fight that he had with Prince William. And this obviously rankled very, very highly with the royals, because you don't talk about those things. They're private family matters. You
don't talk about them. But I think everyone, I think for me, and I didn't really read the book because I just couldn't bring myself to do it, frankly, but reading the coverage of the book, who doesn't fight with their sibling? I mean, I'm not a bloke, I've never punched, I've got a big brother and I've certainly never punched on with him, but I reckon most brothers would have had some sort of wrestling equivalent. We all do. But of course, we
all do. Everybody does. You're human, and that's the thing. And there will have been lots of times we haven't heard William's take on it, and we never will. William's obviously going to be king. He's never going to go there. But I'm sure he would have had a very different view to the one that Harry gave. And as the Queen famously said that phrase, recollections may vary, and this was the case. I'm just glad that the late Queen wasn't here to see it, because I think she would have been very, very disappointed.
She would have been mortified, like any grandmother would have been. I want to move on to Hollywood, and this year the joint releases of blockbusters, of course, Oppenheimer and Barbie. Look, I got to confess, I'm not a massive film goer. I tend to wait till they come out on streaming. I just can't be bothered sitting in a cinema. But if I've seen neither of them, what's your take on, are they worthy of the success and worthy of all the accolades?
Yes. Barbenheimer, I will never forget that weekend. It was such a happy weekend in the UK. My girls and I, we had our tickets. There was cocktails, everything. We were all dressed in pink for opening night for when the Barbie film came out. And it was just one of those massive cultural moments, really, for the 21st century. We'd never seen anything like it. Little girls around the world who had played with Barbie as kids could never imagine being middle-aged older women going to watch this and loving it. And it just delivered in every way. You had Ryan Gosling as Ken, which was just fantastic. I think he's even now releasing a song, the Ken song. He just seemed to fall in love with this character, didn't he? Yeah. And it was just these absolutely incredible, iconic moments. And of course, your native Margot Robbie, Australian actress Margot Robbie, who, I mean, let's just face it, is drop dead beautiful. Yeah, there is no one in the world. She's an absolute
superstar. I need to keep us moving. We've got about a minute left, and I just want to get your thoughts here. We of course had the state memorial service for Barry Humphries last week. Absolute legends: Elton John, Andrew Lloyd Webber, and of course even King Charles himself paying tribute. You have your own Barry Humphries memory. Very quickly, Sarah, if you can share it with us.
Yes, I was delighted to say that I had a wonderful encounter at a literary party. It was a garden party in Hampstead the year before Barry passed away. He was fabulous. He came in, he made a beeline towards me, took my hand, kissed it up the arm, and told me that he had come dressed as an aphid because he was in this fabulous green suit with pink rose in his pocket, in his blazer pocket. And he was hilarious. He was such a raconteur. I couldn't tell if he was being serious, it was just Barry, he was the fastest wit imaginable. Yeah. And he turned around, he says, I'll be damned. He says, I'll be damned if I know who the hell any of these people are. And I says, why have you come? And he says, it's a party, it's the champagne. And he goes, and beautiful women like you. He was a scream, and absolute right. Of course, he didn't know everyone.
I have to wrap you up there. Sorry, Sarah. I have to wrap you up. I've got people in my ear telling me what to do, and I just want to thank you so much for your time, Sarah Robertson. Merry Christmas to you. That's it from me this evening. Thanks so much for your company. Wishing you all a very safe, happy, blessed, and Merry Christmas. Up next is the Royal Report. Good night from me.